We're going to, I'm going to read a text I think that is very prophetic in the sense of it talks about generational or intergenerational relationships. If you will, turn with me to Malachi chapter number 4 and verse 6. Malachi chapter number 4 and verse 6. Malachi will be the last book of the Old Testament, so right before Matthew. And if you're having difficulty, just turn to the table of contents, and that'll help you out. Okay. And it says, verse number 6, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers. Okay.
My text will be sharing in between these two texts, but my text is in Ephesians, the 6th chapter. It's been read several times, but let me read it again because my emphasis is actually verse 4. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And you fathers, this is my emphasis, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. What I'm actually talking about is the Malachi scripture, which is the heart of the father for the family and the children. And what Joel is talking about is the honor that children should do in regards to their family, their parents. And he will start, and then we'll interject.
Right. And so when we talk about honor, honor is the highest virtue that one can espouse to someone. Honor is a choice, a deliberate choice. Actually, in Congress, the highest honor in the military is the Congressional Medal of Honor. It shows that someone has gone above and beyond the call of duty to help protect, to serve, and to give merit to those around them. When the Bible instructs us to honor our parents, that is not necessarily a provisional-based evaluation. When that commandment came, it was the fifth commandment given by God on Mount Sinai to Moses, but it had nothing to do with what the parents were already doing. When he gave the commandment, the children of Israel were in the wilderness. So the parents weren't responsible at that point for providing food because God was providing manna. So it had nothing to do with what the parent was doing. They had no responsibility to provide clothing because God had made the promise to the children of Israel that their clothes would grow with them, so they wouldn't outgrow them. So honor is not necessarily something that we reduce to what is my parent doing for me. But honor is rather something that we bestow on them because they've given us the thing that allows us to exist, which is life. Right?
Excellent.
And so just for the gift of life, whether you've met your mother, whether you met your father, whether you don't have the best relationship with them, or whether you have a great relationship with them like I have with my father, it isn't predicated on the relationship that espouses them to be honored. They're honored just because you are here, so to speak. And so because you're here, they now are endued of honor from you. Now, the text with Malachi deals with the prophetic importance of intergenerational relationships when it comes to any move of God. Because anything that God calls you to do will never be able to be accomplished within one generation.
That's right.
If he calls you to do something, if he calls you to dream, if he calls you to do anything, it's only because it needs to continue after you close your eyes for the final time. If he called you to do something and it can be accomplished within the 40 to 80 to 90 years that you're here, then it wasn't big enough. It wasn't audacious enough. And so the text, the messenger Malachi is talking about the coming day of the Lord. And he said that in order for this day to appear, in order for us to see its fullest fulfillment, something has to happen intergenerationally. The hearts of the fathers have to be turned to their children, and the hearts of the children then have to be turned to their fathers. I attribute it to like a relay race. I like the Olympics. The Olympics is coming up in Brazil this summer. And the relay race in the track and field section, they have a baton and you have 4 legs. And so it is up to the generation to forerun before us, but we have to lay in wait for our chance to run it, so we have to wait for the baton. And so there is an interconnectedness to our success. We need their wisdom, their foresight, and they need us for our strength and our anchor. Because the last leg is always the fastest leg, because he's able to assess the situation, sees whether we're behind or not, how much I need to exert myself, how much I need to do to close the lead, how much I need to do to finish the race. Okay, I'm ahead by this much, I need to extend this. And so we, as the next generation, have to be the anchors, but we have to lay in wait. And so our hearts have to be turned to our parents.
Excellent. My question that I want to answer is from both texts, because the first text that Joel read talked about the turning of the hearts of the father to the children and the children to the father. In Ephesians, Paul said, "Fathers, provoke not your children to wrath." This is my question. Why wouldn't both texts say parents? Why wouldn't both texts say he will turn the hearts of mothers and fathers to the children? And then in the other text say, mothers and fathers, don't provoke your children to wrath. That's what I want to answer. Number one, the reason he says fathers' hearts will be turned to the children is because it is very, very rare that a mother's heart is not for her children. That's almost automatic. Can a woman forget her suckling child that she has compassion on, the son of her womb? Yes, they may forget, yet I will not forget you. So God asks this question saying, look, you know how crazy it is for a woman to ever forget their child. Yet they might, but never me. So what he is saying is, it is so impossible for a woman to forget about her child till when I compare my love to you, I compare it to how a mother loves a child. But the issue now in Malachi is that fathers usually don't love like that. I'm mentioning the father's heart being turned to the children because they have to learn how to love like mothers love, number one. But number two, the family can never come to what it should be if the father doesn't give the family his heart. The family will never amount to what it should be if the father doesn't give it his heart, because the Hebrew term, one of the Hebrew terms for family is house of the father. How can it be the house of the father if the heart of the father is not in the house? So he says, if I don't get this thing right, with the father's heart being in the house, the direct result is going to be a curse. And let me just give this, and then Joe will come with his first point. The word curse means to set aside for destruction. Now listen to what the National Center for Fathering says. It says, by the data, this is supported. Children from fatherless homes are more likely, don't mean necessarily, but says more likely to be poor, become involved in drugs and alcohol abuse, drop out of school, and suffer from health and emotional problems. Boys are more likely to become involved in crime, and girls are more likely to become pregnant as teens. This is the data from the National Center on Fathering, and it quotes this: some fathering advocates would say that almost every social ill faced by America's children is related to fatherlessness. If the heart of the father is not in the house, then the nation goes into dysfunctional, destructive curses.
To parody that, the parent-child relationship provides the framework for how a person views God. Psychologists say that a child is able to imagine or itemize in their mind at the age of 4 the conception that there is a great other to the universe, that they move prayer from the column of just wishful thinking to an actual conversation with the divine by the age of 4. So we are inherently in our hearts very aware that God is as children.
Yes.
But very integral to that is how our relationship with our parents is incepted, so to speak. And so when we are children, we automatically have a superhero complex when it comes to our parents, or should, most of us. And then some of us who have estranged parents, we have a relationship with our parents where they weren't necessarily present. Subconsciously, that influences how we view God.
Yes.
And our conception of God has then changed.
Yes.
It is even noted that by psychologists that when the child has a very strict and overbearing parent, they automatically conjure up that God is a very unforgiving,
yes,
and very forceful and judgmental God. Whereas if a child has a parent that is very encouraging and inspiring and gives them the leeway to kind of find themselves out, they view God as forgiving and benevolent and graceful. And then if the parent is actually estranged and not in the house, we have this thing that allows us to then conceptualize God as someone who is ever present, to take the place of that parent that was estranged. And then the scripture in Psalm says, when my mother and father forsake me, then the Lord will lift me up. And so it is very important for us to have a good relationship with our parents, because that becomes the springboard to our relationship with God. And then secondly, it also, as Bishop had alluded to, it also frames our identification with authority. The reason why I'm grateful that my dad and my mother didn't allow me to run wild is because it set the context for which I have to deal with other people who have authority over me, whether it be a supervisor, whether it be a police officer, whether it be even in relationships, our conjugal relationships, that we need to have a respect towards one another and honoring towards one another. And that framework and how we deal with authority is one of the reasons why, if we don't get this relationship right, the land will be struck with a curse. They did, I love watching the Animal Planet, and they did this show on elephants. And you know, the tusk of the elephant is very valuable. And so elephants get killed.
Yes.
You know, they shoot them and then they steal them for the tusk. It's for jewelry, for piano keys. The ivory is very valuable. And so what they had saw what was happening is because a full matured elephant had the heaviest tusk, they began killing the mature elephants. And what was happening, they saw more villages being trampled. They saw more female elephants being abused.
Yes.
And they were wondering what's going on. This was in the Saharan Africa. What's going on? And what had happened was that because the mature male elephants were being killed off, the younger elephants began to run wild because they had no authority figure to put them back in place and saying we don't treat. So if animals have that same context of the father parent-child relationship, how much more so
Animals.
do we need that relationship with our parents? And so it frames the context again for authority. And then thirdly, the parent-child relationship has to subconsciously embed in the child's mind that they are not alone. When you're in trouble, when you need help, when you don't know what to do, that's one of the things I probably miss most about my mother, is that feeling that I was valued and cared for beyond human comprehension is no longer there, that dynamic. And so the parent-child relationship applies that framework to say to the child that you're not alone in this universe. And I'm so grateful that Pastor Lois had embedded in me a spirit of faith that I could carry with me, that even though she's no longer here, God is still here, and that I am cared for, I am valuable, I am worth something. But the parent has an integral role in providing that same self-esteem to their child. And so that's why we need to honor our parents.
What Joe is talking about is admiration from the children to the parents. What I'm talking about is affection from the father, essentially, to the children. Because when you deal with the hearts being turned to the children, you're dealing with affection or love. The first love that the children need to see from the father is how that father loves the Lord. I'm talking about in Christian homes. How that father interacts with his father. How do you love your father teaches me how to love and respect my father. Let me read this study that was done, and let me preface it with this, because I really believe that the family is a microcosm of the church, and Ephesians backs that up. The father is the pastor, the mother is the assistant pastor, and the children are the members. So then, if the father is the pastor, he is critical in how that church succeeds. If this church fails, it fails majorly because I don't do what I'm supposed to do. Now, the people can get out of order. God can send other people. You know, there's all kinds of things that God will do as long as I, as head, hold a faithful, loving posture as it relates to how I function in the leadership of this church. But if I get out of order, I can wreck everything. Smite the shepherd, scatter the sheep. So as it relates to the home and the father's heart being there, the first way that that heart needs to express its affection is how it relates to the Lord first. And let me read this and you'll see what I'm talking about. According to a 50-year study of Christian and non-Christian families, most young adults who follow Christ either come from non-Christian homes or from homes where they grew up in love with Jesus because mom and dad were in love with Jesus. Their parents' passion for Christ permeated their lives and passed through their pores to their kids. Sadly, very few believers came from homes where there was a kind of indifferent, apathetic commitment to Christ. It is sobering to suggest that the chances are better for a child growing up in a non-Christian home to become a sold-out believer than for a child growing up in a spiritual, lukewarm environment. Do you see how heavy that is? It said that the young adults that were giving themselves to the Lord either came from a non-Christian home or for a home where they saw the father and mother role model real love for the Lord, and that love came over to them. If the Christian home was marginal or lukewarm, they walked away from the faith and said, ain't nothing to it. Because I didn't see it lived out by my father first and my mother. But when the love issue was there with the father and the mother, they fell in love with the same Jesus that the father and the mother loved. Daddy, do you love Jesus? Are you role modeling in front of a passion, not just for basketball games or sports or, other cars and the job and the work ethic? All of that is important. But the first thing that them children have to do to see, to influence their decision for the Lord, is how passionately and how committedly you walk with your passion and your love for your God. It will cause the next generation to continue and perpetrate the same love they saw in their daddy and their mother.
And if I can, Bishop, I just want to deal a little bit more with admiration for the parent or for the father. To the child, the parent takes priority or takes eminence, meaning that there is no word that trumps the word of the father or the parent. No contradicting information, no adversarial counsel, whether it comes from friends, from peers, or even from teachers, that should trump the word that your parents give you. Proverbs 3:1 says, "My son, do not forget my law, but let your heart keep my commands, for the length of days and long life and peace that will add to you." The eminence of the parent would allow one to, again, live a long and prosperous life, because it's like an eagle that sees the road before you trod it. And so with that in mind, you have an advance in intelligence that allows you to walk a path that's the finite and straight, or the narrow way that the parent can advise you to. And so what that means is you don't contradict them. Anything they say, you don't contradict, even if you don't agree. That's a huge part of it. If my dad says something to me like, that wall is blue, it's blue. I'm going to paint it. Because obviously he sees something that I don't. And so I don't do anything. Anybody who knows me knows I won't contradict. If the bishop says it, it's just him. Not only because he's my natural father, but my spiritual father. But that's how I apply it in life. If he advises me to do it, if he tells me that this is the way to go, I honor that. Because obviously God has placed him in my life in his divine wisdom to allow me to ingest something that I might not necessarily see for myself. One of the biggest decisions I ever made was to get engaged and to get married. I had my father's blessing to do that. And that meant a lot for me. That means a lot for anyone, because whenever you make those life-altering decisions, you need the blessing of the Father. And so children, admonish them. And secondly, don't ever speak negatively about your parents to anybody.
Yes.
Never despise them, disregard them,
Yes.
and don't allow anyone to speak negatively about them. Like I'm the most affable and pleasant guy, but if I sense that you got something with Bishop, we got problems. We got problems. I will not allow you to disrespect him. I won't allow you to talk behind his back to me. I don't care if he was wrong, if you think he was wrong, if you perceive he should have did more, that ain't your business. That's the one thing. I don't know if it's still this way, but remember in school when you were younger, and then the only thing, you could call me ugly, you could call me stupid, but the only thing you say your mama, and it turned left. You spitting, you scratching, you pushing, shoving, jumping over tape, because that's admiration. The long and short of that is admiration. Yes. That I won't allow you to disrespect something that I hold valuable. And I hold that relationship, and we all as children should hold that relationship as valuable. And so that is what admiration is. And so what you can do to aid and assist that, because I like to give principles, is you can Find what your parent does that's extraordinary, because everybody is good at something. When you reduce love, love is just the identification of virtues and you clinging to that ideal in that person. Because when you love somebody, like, you're going to get everything. You're going to get the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And so in order to have that love, you have to identify what it is that makes this person special to me. And so some of our mothers are great cooks. Some of them are very doting and loving. Some of them have wise counsel. Some of them will drop everything at a dime just to, care for you. Some of our fathers are very protective and strong and sacrificial and work hard and have great work ethics. Identify that virtue and hold fast to that, and identify it in yourself and have that admiration. And that's one of the ways in which you will turn your heart to your father, is by admiring them. And as I said earlier, that hero worship. Your parent has the ability to be your superhero. Don't look outside of your house for what was already there. Amen. That's implicit in scripture of the lady who was looking for the coin, and when she finally found and cleaned out her house and got her stuff in order, priority, she found the coin inside of her house. And so that's like that for some of us. Don't look outside of yourself for something that's already there. Some of us have great parents. Most of us have great parents. And that doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes. That doesn't mean you agree on everything. But they are valuable, and we are to admire that.
Excellent. And you know you're going to become your parents. When you have kids, you're going to be saying the same thing your parent. Now, the first love, I said, if the heart of the father is going to be towards the children and in the home, is the love that must be expressed for the Lord. The second love I want to show you by reading an article, a part of an article that I read, and this is the love. If your heart is toward the children, you first have to love the Lord, because that will gear them, as Joe said, to the children. It creates that pattern. The second love that the father has to role model in front of the children is love for the wife. You can throw your family into all kinds of dysfunction if the husband, who is a Christian, doesn't love the wife like she should be loved. Let me tell you why. He will see your love for God as illegitimate. Because how can you say you love God and dog my mama? Well, it's getting quiet. How can you really say you doing all this shouting in church and all this lifting of the hands, and you ain't got one good word to say to mom when we get home? Let me read the article, what I read. Your children watch how you treat their mother. They watch and they are learning and forming their concept of marriage from you. You are creating a pattern, a blueprint for marriage with your children. If they see you show disrespect for your wife, your son will carry that into his marriage. If you verbally or mentally or physically abuse your wife, your daughter will expect that in her marriage. If you treat their mother like she isn't worth very much, you are degrading the home, the family, and the marriage, which they will carry into their future homes, families, and marriages. But, thank God for but. If they visibly see you show love and respect for their mother, your son will learn how to be a good husband and father himself. If you honor your wife, your daughter will never be satisfied with a man who dishonors her. If you cherish their mother as a valuable part of not only your life but their life, they will carry that model with them for the rest of their lives. Daddies, if your heart is really for the family, get it together with your wife, because they model, and the paradigm that's being set by how you love that wife teaches the son you never hit a woman or scream at her or call her stupid, or teaches the daughter what kind of man she should connect with. And as soon as that man acts out of that pattern, she say, you gotta go. One hit and that's it. My father never put his hands on my mother, and ain't no man gonna put their hands. So you get it, the first love is how you love God, but that love can only be made credible by how you love that wife, or else they'll say he don't love God and treat his wife like that. Then both loves create a negative model that they take into their own relationships. John.
All right, so the next, which...
And we're almost finished.
Yeah. The next, and one of my final points, is the awe and reverence that a child is supposed to have to the father. Just as the father is to reverence and have awe of his wife, then it's the children's role to have awe and reverence towards their father. And what that means is simply that they are the parent, we are the children, and that we are never equals. They are the parent, we are the children.
Never.
We are never equals. You know, don't allow advances in technology or more information at our disposal to allow us to subvert wisdom. Just because you can show your mother how to work email doesn't mean you smarter than her. Just because you know how to hook up the Wi-Fi when it disconnects and they gotta call you to turn the station when your PlayStation turns off, and how do you get the TV to turn back on, doesn't mean that you got it all figured out and you can move out tomorrow. That, you know, advances in technology, and that's one of the, you know, symptoms of our generation, is that because we think we know more technologically, or because we have more information at our disposal and we're more intelligent, that we can simply disqualify the wisdom and character that our parents try to instill in us, and that's just simply not true. So that awe and reverence should always be there. Again, one of the things that I do in my house, in the house that Bishop allowed me to stay in, was that, you know, in the living room, Bishop has this seat. You know, it's just one seat. If you come into my house, 9 times out of 10, if Bishop's there, he's in his seat. And so, as awe and reverence, if I sat in that seat, when the key turned, it's time to start getting my stuff together because he's coming home to take his seat. That's just awe. That's an example of awe and reverence. It doesn't take much, but that's awe. That's reverence. That, hey, you know, I will decrease so that you can increase. And it don't matter how old I am, I'll be an old man, and I'm going to still have that same reverence and submission to him. And it's not based in fear, but it's out of honor and respect. Just because of what they mean, because they are valuable. And again, to be honored by the child means that the parent is valuable. And so again, don't allow anything that you do in your life to then contradict that awe and that reverence. That we are always supposed to stay committed and submitted. Taking on, and again, the text says the prophet Elijah says something in the desert. He said, you know, Lord, take me, for I am no greater than my fathers.
Yes.
He said, Lord, take me, for I am no greater than my fathers. That this generation, for some reason, has this affinity with becoming greater than those that preceded them. And that I don't care if you do more than they did, you will never be greater than the one that preceded you. And so we must, again, remain humble and submitted to those authoritative figures in our lives, whether they be parents, aunts, uncles, teachers, and fathers specifically, because that is the only way in which we do honor to ourselves. Because without honoring others, we can't be trusted. Amen. And so we can be successful, but we won't be able to be trusted. We can accrue money and we can accrue prestige and status, but no one wants to trust you. And without that honor and this being more blessed to give it than to receive it is the only way we get it for ourselves, is to espouse that awe and that reverence and that deference for their authoritative figure and position in our lives.
Excellent. Before I get to my last love, let me show how that was role modeled by him to me in our home. I don't know how old Joe was, but he came to me and said, "Dad, I want to get some earrings in my ear." Yeah, you remember that? I didn't yell or, go crazy. And I talked to him. I told him. I said, "Joe, I'm the pastor of the church. If I allow you to get earrings in your ear, then every parent in there who has a child that sees the earrings in your ear will now say, 'Can I get an earring in my nose? Can I get an ear?' And if they say no, well, Bishop's son got earrings." And I explained to him that as the family, we have to set the role model for the rest of the families. I can't let you get earrings in the ear because it'll have a ripple effect throughout this congregation that will be very, very negative. He submitted. I know he was mad. He's a grown man now. He can get earrings. He still ain't got none. But that was the issue. Now, the reason I posed that before I get to my last point with this love for the fathers is you're going to be greater than us. Bishop Norman Rochwood, my spiritual father, though he was my oldest brother, told me this and said it. He said, "If you do not become greater than me, I failed you." When I pass and go on to be with the Lord, and if my son or my daughter are pastoring, their churches may be 10 times this size, because they will be greater. They will have their stuff and my stuff, but they will also have the submission to me that causes God to now honor them, because if they honor me, God's going to honor and bless them, and they will not end up like Absalom. They will end up like Solomon. Honor your father and mother, because you're going to be greater in your time than they ever were. You'll have more, be more, do more, and go more, but you've got to set the platform now by honoring them. And Joe did that. And I'll take my love offering after. Double this week. All right, let me get to the last love. I want to run through this quickly. The last love, y'all are in class. The first love for the father, if he's going to have his heart in the home, he's got to show how to love who? He's got to show how to love God. If his heart is in the home, the second love has to be how he what? Loves his wife. Now the third love is how he loves the children. How he loves the children. So, I like alliteration. So I got love the Lord, love the lady, and love the lad. Love the lad and the young lady. I couldn't figure out a L for female besides lady. Okay, so you love the Lord, you love the lady, that's the wife, and you love the lad, that's the boy, and the young lady, which is the girl. Now, Ephesians tells us how that's to be done. My technology is failing me, but don't think you smarter than me, like Joe said. It's just taking too long. I don't know what the Wi-Fi is, but let me just have someone read it. Ephesians 6:4. Would you just read it so I don't have to fool with this phone?
Yeah. "And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath."
Okay, let me get to that first. What that word there, provoke means to do not provoke them to anger, irritation, or resentment. Don't make them angry. Don't get them irritable. And please don't do things that causes them to foster a resentment. That's why you got to love that wife like you should, because a child will resent you for mistreating their mother. And when they grow up, they will have a serious attitude with you because they can't say anything while they're young and in your house. But when they get out, they'll tell you what they really felt. So this is important. Now, Joe, it says in that verse, I think it says, what? After, don't provoke them, what is the first instruction? Read it slowly.
But bring them up.
Bring them up. Let me give you the Greek there for bring them up. It is a Greek word that means nourish. It means nourish. How do you nourish? To nourish means to support or encourage. There are three things you have to do to nourish. Number one, you give time. When you give time to your children, you say you're important. And you're so important that I don't mind spending my time with you. Now, I didn't get this perfect, but I tried. In my busy schedule and preaching and everything, if my daughter had a concert or whatever, I tried to be there. If my son was doing something special, I tried to be there. Sometime I failed. We all fail as fathers. I'm not up here to make you think I'm some perfect father and that I got everything right. A lot of what saved me was the virtue of Pastor Lois. Because when I couldn't be there, she poured into them and taught them to love and respect me, even with my imperfections. But my point is, the more time that you can spend with your children, not quantity time, quality time, where they have your undivided attention. If it's 20 minutes, looking in their eyes and telling them what's wrong, is there any problem, I love you, you're valuable, or whatever. The other thing to nourish, you have to give touch. A woman, you've heard me say it, both men and women, but especially women need 8 healthy hugs a day. So look at that with your daughter or with your son. I'm a touchy person by nature, but I was always hugging or kissing or etc. because touch brings life and health if it is healthy. If I could touch my daughter seductively and mess her up, if I touch her in love and respect, I can build her up and make her feel value in who she is. And if she's touched wrong by somebody else, immediately she'll rebel against it. My father didn't even do that to me. You ain't doing that. The principle is these are biblical principles from fatherhood. In the Old Testament, the patriarchal blessing was not just spoken. When you gave it, you had to lay hands on the child and then pronounce it, because your touch brought a certain healing and blessing to their body and to their emotions. Then your words took it even further. So the time you spend, the touches you give, especially with your daughter. Sometimes you got to date your daughter. Take your daughter out. Take the chair out. Put her in. Give her the menu. Whatever you want to order, sweetheart. As you date her, you set in her mind how a man should treat her on a date. And when she doesn't see those things with somebody she's interested in, red flags will go up. Should I invest my life with somebody that can't even open the car door? So your time makes a model. Your touch brings life and healing. But the last thing is talk. You've got to learn the balance between criticism and celebration. You can't do all of one. You can't be all critical. You'll never do anything right. I don't know what's wrong with you. Look look at this mess of a report card. You never gonna be nothing. And that's all they hear. Oh, in fact, let me just read this. You know, I do my research this is a book from called Between Parent and Child, and this is page 72. A child learns what he lives. If he lives with criticism, he does not learn responsibility. He learns to condemn himself and to find fault with others. He learns to doubt his own judgment, to disparage his own ability, and to distrust others. And above all, he learns to live with the continual expectation of impending doom. What is going to happen next? Bad. Because all I keep hearing is bad stuff about who I am. You got to criticize, but also celebrate. Find the things they've done right and give them an esteem. Okay, you didn't get the A, but you got a B. Last time you had a C. You're doing better, but I know you can even do better than this. It's going to be very, very important how you talk to children, because that recording is going to go off in their head for the rest of their life. You're no good like your daddy. Your daddy didn't work, and you going to be a bum. All of that stuff is too critical. Ask yourself, how can I celebrate my children without it being phony? The second thing, Joe, just read the next one and I'll finish that one out. The first one was bring them up. What's the next word?
And admonition of the Lord.
Before admonition.
Train them up bring them up in training and admonition of the Lord.
Okay, in the King James, you'll see nurture. And that means to tutor or instruct. So now you're feeding the mind, the father. And let me tell you how critical this is now. Because with all of this sexual deviation that's going on in our culture, and our little kids are going to school and hearing stuff about, Heather has two mommies what is two mommies? It is very, very, very important now that the father especially sit the children down and discuss with them issues of sexuality and other issues of life, so they don't learn it all out there and get the wrong image of what it means to be a man. Because in a lot of our communities, what it means to be a man is how many babies you have. That make you a stud. That make you a king. Who then can redefine masculinity so that I know that that's a misdirection to masculinity? If there's no father there, where do I get it? If there is a father there and he won't talk to me about it, where do I get it? The father has to take a challenge to speak to the children about very, very critical issues, especially of sexuality and other things of that nature, so that they get the right model from a spiritual man who's telling them the truth. And we got to take that as a responsibility. The last one is discipline. And that's what that word admonition means. It has to do with warning, exhorting, and disciplining. And I'll close there, and then Joe will give his last remarks, and then we'll pray. But the discipline of the father is very, very important, because when they're both there, the mother gives devotion. She gives love. She gives emotional support by hugging and kissing and caressing. The father now balances that out. Is supposed to balance that out with discipline. Now, discipline does not mean spanking. That is just a part of discipline. Number one, you discipline by depriving privileges. Take that cell phone back. Shut down the computer or whatever. You take a cell phone back today, that's a major crisis. You done You done messed my life up. You take my cell phone. Deprived of privilege, whatever that may be. My mama didn't always spank me. Sometimes she said, you shut down for the week. You come home and do your homework, you go nowhere. My friends came, I heard them outside playing, they rang the bell. Come on, man. Nah, man, I can't. I'm on shutdown. Killed me. Killed me. My mother really didn't spank me a lot, but she deprived me of privileges, and she did the second thing, verbal rebuke. And I'm not talking about screaming and hollering, but I'm talking about verbally rebuking action. You know better than that. I'm not raising you to be no thief. Verbal rebuke. She rebuked me when I got out of line. And she didn't scream and holler and jump on the table. But she rebuked me and I got the message. She deprived me of privileges. She verbally rebuked me. And then there was corporal punishment within the legalities of the law and not abuse. But sometimes the message that is given has to be one that gets to them. And I'll tell you when she spanked me and when I believe sometimes these children need to be spanked. Legally and not abusively. When they defy authority. Because if you defy my authority, you'll defy God's, the government's, and the police. And I'm not going to let you end up in jail because you can't follow orders. So if I show disrespect, really show disrespect, disobeyed real bad, I told you when I played hooky that first and last time, my friend Alfred got me, man, come on, man, we don't need to go to school. Let's go hang out. Took me down to Hancock Street, hanging out in the hallway, stealing lunch and all kind of craziness all day. And I came home and my mama was waiting for me at the gate. She said, son, how are you? How was school? Oh, fine, Ma, fine. He said, oh, yeah? You got homework? Yeah, oh, yeah. You know they give homework every day, Mama. She said, all right, go inside and do your homework. She wanted to see if I would repent and tell the truth. I didn't, so she came in there with the rod, with the Board of Education to apply to the seat of learning. She said, I'm not just spanking you because you played hooky. I'm spanking you because I'm not raising a liar. She spanked me. Now, I know that she'd probably go to jail today because they don't let this stuff. She was not abusive. She didn't have no crazy whelps all over me and I'm bleeding all over the place. But I'll tell you this, I never played hooky again. The discipline of the father, both father and mother can discipline, but I'm dealing with the father. The discipline of the father balances out the home. He gets the love of the mother, the hugs of the mother, the devotion of the mother, but then he gets the correction of the father, and that helps him to be balanced in life. He's able to respond positively to love and positively to authority, and then his life is protected and safe. Because if he doesn't learn that dynamic balance, his life will be out of control in some area because he didn't get it. So fathers, please nourish them, protect them, honor them, love God, love the wife. And God said there'll never be a curse. There'll always be a generational blessing because the child admires the parents, the father, mother loves the child. Last remarks from Joe.
Yes. My final remarks, if I could just give a word of advice to children. Psalms 90:12 says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. One of the implicit disadvantages of our humanity is that we have no conception of our own mortality. That each and every one of us, should the Lord delay his coming, is going to die.
You're going to die.
No matter how young you are, no matter how old you are, everyone's day is coming. And I'm going to be celebrating my 32nd birthday in June. If we count young adulthood from 16, I've now lived twice. 16 twice. I can't tell you where the years went, and hopefully I have more years to go. But I mean, it's a vapor. And so, as you are young, whether you're in school or in college or whatever level of maturation you are at, take advantage. Be faithful and fidelis to your calling, to your parents, to your church, to your education, and to yourself. Because a lot of the decisions that you make follow you. There are no erroneous decisions. And yes, that doesn't mean be perfect. None of us are. As Bishop said, I wasn't the perfect son. He wasn't the perfect father. But we were able to identify the virtue in each other. And that's what aided the relationship. And so take advantage. Get your grades. Get good grades. Learn as much as you can. Travel. While you're not paying bills, save your money. I wish. I started working at 16. I don't know where that money at. And now I'm paying for a wedding, and I'm like, whoo, Jesus. And it comes up on you. And you really become envious of the days in which you had, no responsibilities. Where your only primary goal and responsibility was just to go to school and get good grades. That's it. Listen to your parents, take out the trash, clean the dishes. Light work compared to adulthood. Like light. Like no comparison. And as much as you want to be on your own, remember that the truest sign of maturation is being able to deny immediate gratification for a long-term goal. And so you just apply that to how you listen to your parents, your teachers, in school, and how you make your day-to-day choices. We know, a lot of us, we're way more smart or intelligent than we give on. We know what's right and wrong. We've grown up around a good enough stock of people to be able to discern and delineate the good choice and the bad choice. Learn how to delay it, and then also pray to God for the wisdom to learn how to apply it. So once you know it, ask God for the strength and the grit to apply it, because it is sometimes hard, delaying being popular and making the unwise choice of being, the class clown or, doing this with that person or whatever. It's hard. It's a very difficult decision in that moment. But you have to always be mindful that, hey, the decisions that I make today will affect my tomorrow. And you have to number your days and be aware that one day I am laying the groundwork for my future. And take it very seriously, because everything that you're doing at this moment will carry with you. And so just be very mindful and know that the priorities in life are very important, and listen to your parents, because they are really trying to do the best for you. Amen.
Excellent. I want to end mine by reading a statement. It's a metaphor, actually, from the book Standing Tall. It was written by Steve Farrar. He's the author, and you'd find this article on page 199. And this is for our fathers. And you can relate to it, mamas, too. But a godly father is the unseen spiritual submarine who lurks below the surface of every activity of his child's life. A man who has put on the full armor of God, and with that armor goes to warfare on his knees for his children. He's a force to be reckoned with. We cannot be with our children 24 hours a day. Through our prayers, we have the ability to affect situations even when we're not physically present. You may be undetected, but that does not mean you are ineffective. If you role model godliness, pray for them, love them, discipline them, nurture them, and all of these things, you may be undetected, but that doesn't mean you're ineffective.